work on the line.
Starting about 10 minutes before atmospheric entry, we get rid of really the spacecraft part of the rover that's been supporting us.
We come screaming in to the Martian atmosphere at 12 to 13,000 miles per hour.
And the heat shield, what dissipates all that initial energy through friction.
The vehicle will continue actually flying itself through the atmosphere. It's sort of like a transforming vehicle that went from a spacecraft, and now it's kind of like an aircraft actively guiding itself.
When we're going slow enough, we deploy a parachute.
The biggest supersonic parachute we've ever sent to another planet. It's critical for slowing down the vehicle. Perseverance's entry, descent, and landing borrows heavily from that of Curiosity.
But fundamentally, Perseverance is a different rover. She's bigger, she has different instruments.
We've added a lot of smarts on the inside to make it more capable so that it can deal with the landing site that we've given.
The science team identified Jezero Crater as basically an ancient lake bed and one of the most promising places to look for evidence of ancient microbial life and to collect samples for future return to Earth. The problem is it's a much more hazardous place to land.
When you look at Jezero, all you see is danger. How do we go to a site that we never thought was safe enough to go to before? So the heat shield, which has protected us all the way through entry, is no longer necessary. We need to get that off so that we can actually see the ground. And we can see the ground in a couple different ways.
Perseverance will be the first mission to use terrain relative navigation. So while it's descending on the parachute, it will actually be taking images of the surface of Mars and determining where to go based on what it sees. This is finally like landing with your eyes open. Having this new technology really allows Perseverance to land in much more challenging terrain than Curiosity or any previous Mars mission could. Amongst the rocks and the craters and the cliffs, these things are hazardous to the rover, but these are the things that are interesting to the scientists.
Once Perseverance has figured out where she is, we jettison the back shell and parachute and light up our rockets. Those rockets help us steer to a safe landing spot that's nearby.
That descent stage takes us all the way down to about 20 meters off the ground.
That's when we start the skycrane maneuver. Once the rover has hit the ground, the descent stage will cut loose from the rover and fly away to a safe distance. Surviving that 7 minutes is really just the beginning for Perseverance. Its job, right, being the first leg of sample return, to go look for those signs of past life on Mars. All that can't start until we get Perseverance safely to the ground. And then that's when the real mission begins.
With us now is Al Chen. He is Perseverance's entry, descent, and landing lead. Al, you were part of the Curiosity rover landing. Does it get any easier the second time around?
It absolutely does not, especially when considering we're trying to land the biggest, heaviest, and most complex rover we've ever built at the most dangerous landing site we've ever attempted. Jezero may look great and promising from a science perspective, but it's absolutely treacherous for landing. There's a cliff wall that's about 200 feet tall that runs right through the middle of the landing site. There are craters full of sand that even if we landed in them, we would not be able to drive out of. And there are rocks to the east and actually all over the place, and rock fields. That would be a bad day for us if we were to land on them.
Now, Al, what new technology makes this type of dangerous landing possible?
Perseverance is carrying two new technologies that are really kind of under the hood smart that are allowing us to land at this kind of treacherous landing site. The first is range trigger. That's the ability, we've given Perseverance the ability to decide for herself, based on where she is, when to deploy the parachute. Previously, we used to deploy parachutes, that supersonic parachute, based just on navigated velocity. But now Perseverance has the smarts to figure out where she is and deploy that parachute at just the right place to make sure that we shrink where we could come down. That actually reduces the area, that error ellipse, where we can come down on the ground, from something that was on the order of 15 miles long by 12 miles wide for Curiosity to about 5 miles long by 4 miles wide for Perseverance. So that's quite a bit of reduction. Second, the next piece of technology that's helping us land there is terrain relative navigation. In the past, after we've popped off the heat shield, we've taken pictures of the ground as it's been coming up, but we haven't really done anything with them. This time, Perseverance is carrying a camera to take pictures, but also a kind of second brain to help it figure out what those pictures are telling it and match it up with an onboard map from a satellite. That allows it to figure out exactly where she is. Suddenly, then, she can then fly to safe spots that are nearby once she really knows where she is. It allows the site to not have to be as flat and boring as a pancake as some of our past sites have been. The entire area we could come down. Now we just need little pieces of that site to be small enough and safe enough for us to land in safely and fly there after we've gotten rid of the parachute.
And we also have a social media question coming in. Sansakari14 on Instagram is asking, how does the sky crane decide where to move itself after the payload lands?
After the payload lands, after the rover touches down, the sky crane, the descent stage, which is that rocket-powered jetpack above it, the first job, of course, is to make sure you don't hurt the rover. So it'll turn forward or backward so that the engine plumes don't pass over the rover. So it'll come up and start to turn. And it'll go in whichever direction is closest to north. So it can either go forward, if that's the way north is, or go toward the rear of the rover, if that's where north is. And it'll fly about a third of a mile or so away.
Thanks for talking to us today, Al.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's head back to Mission Control for an update from Swati.
Hi, Raquel. So remember that command that we sent at around 11:35 to turn the transmitter off? We are just about to get confirmation that Perseverance has received the command. The command took 11 minutes to go to Perseverance, and then the reply took 11 minutes to get back from Perseverance to the ground. So we should hear any second now that we have officially turned off the transmitter. And after that, we will be about 4 minutes from the start of entry, descent, and landing mode. At this point, we will transition from the cruise approach mode to entry, descent, and landing. And that means our travel from Earth to Mars is done, and now we just need to get to the surface. So far, things are looking good.
Great.
Hello, this is CAD 3, ready to show estimated miss distance for OD 152.
Copy, EDL phase, welcome back. Flight Ace. Go Ace. Our tracking stations have all confirmed the results of the transmitter drive-off and in lock one way. Copy, Ace. GDS flight. Flight GDS. At this time, I'd like to disable the alarms before EDL main. So please disable all the alarm files and start a new downlink session. Copy that. Proceed. Copy that. Proceeding now.
Confirmation that we are now officially one way and the transmitter is off.
Rover mission has helped shape the other, starting with the landing of the Pathfinder more than 20 years ago, leading up to where we are today with Perseverance. Perseverance Deputy Project Manager Jennifer Trosper has worked on every Mars rover mission, and she joins us now. Jennifer, how does Perseverance fit into the history of exploring Mars?
Thanks, Raquel. It's great to be here. Well, Perseverance is NASA's 5th rover on Mars, and I've had the privilege of working on every one of them. And the very first rover was the Sojourner rover we sent in 1997, and it was the size of a microwave oven. And even at that small size, Sojourner was able to transform the way that we explore Mars from stationary landers to small roving robots that go from place to place, just like a geologist would on Earth. So once we had that roving capability, then we sent our twin rovers Spirit and Opportunity. Spirit and Opportunity were tasked with finding evidence of ancient water on Mars. Now they did. They're great explorers, and both of them found ample evidence that water had once existed on the surface of Mars. But we had a question. Another question then was, Mars ever habitable if water had been there? And that's when we sent Curiosity. Now, Curiosity was a major upgrade to our rover fleet. She's the size of a small car. She landed with the Sky Crane system instead of airbags. And she also carries along her own sample analytics lab, and she's still operating today. And during her exploration, she has found evidence of a habitable environment in an ancient lake bed on Mars. So now we're sending Perseverance. Perseverance is tasked with answering the question and looking for evidence of ancient microbial life on Mars. And in order to do this, she has to be the smartest and most capable rover we've ever sent.
Speaking of Perseverance, can you tell us more about how Perseverance is smarter than its predecessors?
Yes, we've made a lot of upgrades to help her along with the surface mission. One of them is for her autonomous traverse capability. When I say autonomous traverse, I mean we tell her where we want her to end up, and she has to figure out the safe and best way to get there. In order to do that, she uses her cameras, algorithms, a computer. So we've given her another computer, we've upgraded the cameras, and we've upgraded the algorithms. Now she drives 3 times as fast as Curiosity could drive in this autonomous traverse mode. In fact, her average daily distance for driving, about 200 meters, is close to the maximum distance any rover has ever driven in a day on Mars. So she's fast. Another thing that we've done, which is the most significant upgrade that we've made, is the sample caching system itself. Curiosity has a robotic arm, like Perseverance has a robotic arm, but on the end of Perseverance's robotic arm is a coring drill that will go and take rock cores, transfer them into sample tubes and into the rover, where another robotic arm will take those tubes, will seal them and store them, and eventually drop them on the surface of Mars for future return to Earth.
Great. And we also have a social media question about Perseverance. Erica AS on Instagram wants to know what the wheels of the rover are made out of.
Great question. Well, you may think we make them out of some material you've never heard of. It turns out they're made of aluminum. Now, Perseverance's wheels are a little thicker than Curiosity's, but they're actually both made out of aluminum.
And one more question for you. Can you tell us more about the importance of where you are right now in the building?
Yes, I am above, on the second floor, above the cruise mission support area that you've been watching. And this is the surface mission support area. So as soon as Perseverance lands, all commands, this room will take over. It will become headquarters for operating Perseverance on Mars.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Now, we now know Perseverance's place in history. Let's take an up-close look at the rover with Mars 2020 System Testbed Engineer, Elio Morillo.
Thank you, Raquel. I'm standing in front of the Mars 2020 Perseverance scaled model. As you can tell, this vehicle is about the size of a Mini Cooper. These wheels are obviously black here, and they look like rubber, but they're actually fully made of metal. These wheels are designed to allow us to climb over obstacles and, of course, climb over hills and minimize the amount of slipping once we're traversing on the surface of Mars. Here in the front of the rover, we have the sample caching system. And, of course, at the very front end of this is the robotic arm, which this entire system is arguably the most complex robotic system we've ever sent outside of Earth. Here at the tip of the arm, we have a turret which contains a suite of instruments along with some drills and coring capabilities that will allow us to do contact science once we get to the surface of Mars. Not only that, this robotic system is equipped to collect samples about the size of a piece of chalk that then eventually will be stored inside of the vehicle and dropped off in a later location so that an eventual mission can go and return these samples to Earth, something we've never done in the past. Here in the front, we have the remote sensing mast. Something of note is that this mechanism is going to be stowed upon the touchdown on the surface of Mars. And one of the first critical activities we do is deploy this mechanism. This mechanism includes several cameras that are going to give us some of the most breathtaking images we've ever taken on Mars. Along with that, we have some lasers as well as a spectrometer. They're going to allow us to do some remote science. Here you see some of these extrusions that are part of the larger weather suite of instruments that will allow us to characterize the local climate around Perseverance. So that's a quick tour of the rover, but I gotta get back to work. So back to you.
Perseverance is collecting samples of Martian rock for future return to Earth. We've heard that scientists have been wanting to bring Martian samples back for many generations. And here to talk a little bit about that is NASA's Planetary Science Division Director, Lori Glaze, who joins us now to talk about the role Perseverance will play in NASA's future goals. Welcome, Lori.
Hi.
Now, as you just heard, we've heard that scientists have been wanting to bring back these Martian samples for a very long time. Why do we need to bring them back?
That's really a great question. You know, we actually have examples of Mars already here on Earth that came here as meteorites, but we don't know exactly where they came from on Mars, and then they also have had to make the trip from Mars to Earth, and so they got altered during that time, and then during their entry and descent into the Earth's atmosphere, that also changes what those rocks are like. So being able to go to Mars and actually collect a sample where we know exactly where it came from, and we know we can preserve it and keep it pristine and carry it all the way back here, this will be incredibly important to help us answer questions about the geologic history of Mars, understanding how it formed and evolved, and also really important questions about whether or not life actually existed on Mars 3.5 billion years ago, and whether that life, if it existed, has been preserved in the surface of Mars.
Now, Lori, these sample tubes that Perseverance is going to be collecting, they're the cleanest things ever created on Earth. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh my goodness. We worked so hard. The team here at JPL is absolutely incredible to assure that those sample tubes are incredibly clean. One of the main goals of this mission is to be able to detect if there's actual life that's preserved, ancient life preserved in those rocks, in those samples. And we definitely don't want to be carrying, our own DNA off to Mars and then bring it back here to confuse our scientists when they're trying to study those samples. So it is an incredibly clean set of equipment that's been sent there. As you said, the cleanest thing we've ever sent into space.
Now, this is a very complicated campaign. Can you break down for us how it's going to work and if there's any international partners working with us?
You are correct. The Mars sample return campaign is incredibly complex. In fact, it's probably the most challenging thing we've ever tried to do. But we're definitely not going to try and do it alone. We have great partners with the European Space Agency. And the way this campaign is going to work, well, Perseverance is the first step. Chapter 1 is going to Mars and collecting the samples. Chapter 2 is going to be a sample return lander that we hope to launch in around 2026 to 2028. And that lander, it'll be an American lander carrying a fetch rover that's provided by European Space Agency. And that little fetch rover will drive out and pick up the samples that Perseverance left on the surface of Mars. And the fetch rover will bring them back and load them into a rocket that we call the Mars Ascent Vehicle, which will be the first ever launch from another planet. And it will launch those samples into orbit around Mars. In the meantime, the European Space Agency will have an orbiter that's in orbit around Mars that can rendezvous and capture those samples and then bring them back to Earth for us to study back here in our amazing laboratories.
A lot of firsts, it sounds like, Lori. And another first, how is Perseverance and the Mars sample return mission going to help the future human exploration of Mars?
I'm so glad you asked that. I think we're going to get a lot of great information from Mars sample return with, again, being able to land the heaviest payload we've ever landed on Mars will be that sample return lander. That's critical to us learning how to land humans on Mars. And then we are definitely going to want to be able to launch the humans back off of Mars. So that Mars Ascent Vehicle is going to be critical, that first step of the first launch from another planet.
So exciting, Lori. And speaking about the Mars generation, we're now going to take a student question for you from Livia.
Hi, my name is Livia, and my question is, what made you want to study Mars, and why are you working so hard and willing to wait so long for a sample? Thank you.
Oh, Olivia, that is such a great question. And I enjoy Mars just because it can tell us so much about how our solar system formed and evolved. All of the planets can tell us different parts of that story, and Mars is a really key piece of that. And one of the main reasons we're willing to wait so long to get the sample back is that we've got great new scientists that are all about your age, and in about 10 or 15 or 20 years, you'll be the generation that's going to actually get to work with these samples. When they come back, you'll be the scientists and engineers that will be the next generation to change how we think about Mars and how we think about life in the solar system.
That was a great question, Lori. Reach for the stars, future little scientists and engineers. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Lori.
It's my pleasure. Thanks.
Back to you, Raquel, for another mission update.
Thanks, Marina. The cruise team for Perseverance controls the rover on its way to Mars. And moments ago, they handed it over to the landing team, and it looks like team leaders in mission control are about to talk to both teams. So let's listen in.
The CBM change, as I mentioned previously, is to the EDL reserve two-way non-coherent row activity. Copy flight. EDL phase, go ahead.
Pep talk, I guess, to the team. Right. I'm terrible at pep talks. I think my reputation precedes me there. And look, I know this hasn't been easy, right? I'm not even sure we've even been all in the same room at the same time. I mean, I'm staring at folks across the internet as well. Even now, right? Yeah. Voice check. Okay. I do want to just extend my heartfelt appreciation from the EDL team to the launch cruise team. You've done everything we've asked for, right? I mean, you've battled anomalies, you've dealt with Cepheids, you've done everything. You delivered a healthy spacecraft to the place that we want to go. And she's right on target, right? You did the last maneuver literally 2 months ago, right? This is pretty incredible, in my opinion. And she's armed with the right information to help us land. Doing the parameter update last night, we're ready to roll. You've done everything right. And you've put up with us too, right? You've put up with our eccentricities and the things we like to do in EDL land. So I very much appreciate that. So you all should sleep in on Friday, since you guys have earned it. Thanks for literally and figuratively putting us in the right position to succeed. And let's land on Mars together.
Copy EDL phase. And as flight director, I also would like to thank the whole team, cruise ops, EDL ops, EDL team, and the surface ops as well. It's been an amazing journey. I think we all know that. And it's been my honor and pleasure to work with you all side by side. And your tireless efforts and endurance in the face of our challenges has been truly, truly inspiring. So kudos to you. Mission, would you like to say something?
Yeah, just echoing this. Can't be more proud than all of the achievements that you guys have pulled off in the last 6.5 months. Whatever happens in the next hour and a half, you can be proud of the achievements that you've accomplished so far. I look forward to seeing you on the other side, and I only wish that the rest of our team could be sharing this moment with us. This is a very unusual event. This room is only half as full as it would be if we weren't in this pandemic. So missing everybody on the team who's not with us here today. And go EDL.
Welcome to the EDL family.
And with that, Godspeed Perseverance. All right, activity. Go ahead and continue the report.
Sure thing, Flight. We've since completed the EDL start anchor. As I was mentioning, we changed our CBM row to EDL reserve two-way non-coherent. That row reinforces our CBM windows disabled, keeps our packetization on, it turns off our ranging and switches to the auxiliary oscillator. We have also started our real-time data product and reinforced Medley on. At this time, we
Now, we just heard Perseverance team leaders thank the cruise team for their work in guiding the rover to Mars. Now, did you know the rover name and Mars helicopter name came from students? Well, a couple weeks ago, Marina was able to catch up with them.
Thanks, Raquel. Earlier this year, NASA and our partners held a nationwide essay contest to name our Mars rover. Alex Mather, a seventh grader from Springfield, Virginia, submitted the winning essay that was selected by NASA from a field of more than 28,000 entries from K through 12 students in every state in the U.S. Vanessa Rupani's essay for Ingenuity was so compelling, NASA thought it would be a perfect name for the history-making helicopter, a technology demonstration carried aboard the Perseverance rover. Alex and Vanessa join us now. Welcome, you guys.
Hello, space nerds.
Hi. Now, you got to go to Florida and watch the launch live back in July. Alex, what were you feeling as you saw that rocket launch into the sky?
I read a lot of books written by astronauts, and every single one of them always talks about the raw power behind a space launch. And I definitely feel like watching the launch invoked that sense of inspiration mixed with anticipation, along with that rumble in my chest.
That's very inspirational, and I'm sure that you have had many conversations with your classmates since this all began. Now, what kind of questions have they asked you?
I got some people asking me about what this helicopter is, what this rover is, what are they actually going to do. So I love that this whole sparked a greater interest in the mission in my community.
Why do you think it's so important for kids to be inspired by space exploration?
Because space is the future, and kids are the future. Learning about space and watching the story of humanity spread to the stars happen is watching the future happen and seeing history unfold.
The best way to keep our home safe and protect our planet is